This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Lord Philip, whose words are, "The final boss is always the hardest."
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we're into chapter 28, Catelyn of A Game of Thrones. And in A World of Ice and Fire, we are discussing the Fall of the Dragon, actually.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a lot of fun.
It's weird. We haven't, it's been a while since we've not had like somebody,
Like a
the
Targaryen,
first or something.
Yeah, king or something.
Back to like the Dawn Age, the Age of Heroes.
Right, exactly. So this, and we, I think we said last week we were going to cover Robert Baratheon, first of his name, but we're going to hold off.
Yeah, we're holding off on that.
Yeah, for a week.
Yeah.
Give it more time, I think. Last week was a lot. We went over a lot last week.
And this week also we were looking at the chapter again. We're like, this is a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot.
So we may do Robert's Rebellion and his reign because they're really short.
Right,
together.
and well, we can spend some more time at Tourney of Harrenhal and all that good stuff. Leading up to it. So a lot we can speculate, and then that's a nice stopping point for like Fallout Friday. More Ravens about Tourney of Harrenhal, what may have happened, who was there, what went down,
who backed it.
Yeah,
that's a big part of this chapter.
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, so good point. Okay, so guys, this is kind of the episode that just almost like
it's the end, really.
It's just almost didn't happen. We've been sitting here for hours, and I'm just sort of like, it's like I'm just trying to keep Sir Matt around.
I know,
as long as I can.
I know. You know, people have asked us, like, how are you going to do it? So, we do have a, to put it in Star Wars terms, a contingency plan. We have one. It's in place. Okay?
Right, we do.
We have the contingency plan. So, so we're gonna just do it over the internet. It's really no different.
Yeah, it actually will be, I think, pretty solid.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. We've got a lot of. We're still. I mean, even with the possibility of doing the rewatch. Yeah, we still have that going on, like a nice, fun Saturday for us to just, sit down, watch some episodes, and then chat away with some folks. So we're gonna get that once Sir Matt gets out west.
Yeah, I'm taking the King's Road. Well, actually, when this episode airs, hopefully I should actually be arriving. If I don't, I'm dead.
Right.
And it was fun, guys. Or I'm snatched.
Wait, did they ever find a body? Yeah. See, if not, I'll have to go. I'll have to.
Yeah.
Call the banners.
Yeah.
If you go missing, I will call every person in this group.
Yeah.
To come with me on a quest
to the Westerlands
to find you.
Yeah.
I will.
Well, I hope so.
I will.
Hope I'm not in like a meat locker or something. So.
Yeah, I hope. Good grief.
But real quick before we jump into some news on the show and stuff like that, I just want to say thank you to everyone. We've had so many people. We've just had so many new likes. So many people joining the group. People that we went to high school with. That I was like, what?
Yeah,
just
people we had no idea were listening.
Because sometimes, we see our friends and family like the page and like, oh, that must, they see that we do it and stuff like that. And then, but when we see people join the group, we're like, wow, these people are. So it's just cool.
Yeah, because it's an extra step.
Oh yeah.
To go actually get in the group, it's an extra step, and so it's like, oh, there's a little bit of commitment there. Look. I mean, that's pretty crazy. So. Yeah, you're right, and we are super thankful for everybody who supports us on Patreon and who listens and participates in the group. It's just, it's fantastic. I saw Sir Gibbs signing off, with his name today.
And,
I was just like,
everyone
whoa.
has every time we get somebody new in the group, and this is why we have the group, is we have people come in and they say like, hey, like I'm new to the group or whatever, and like Sir Ezra and I can't always post right away because different time zones and stuff like that, and just busy, and I usually go in and check the group once I can see everyone's talking, and everyone has just been so nice to new people, and I just want to say thank you for that.
Yeah, it's positivity, man. I mean,
we saw somebody post that, hey, I'm new to the group, and immediately there was 4 or 5 comments like welcome, and everyone's super welcoming, and that's what the group's for, and I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, I do too, and I also want to say that part of that is you gotta bend the knee.
It's true. There's 60 people in the group already, and I was like, what?
I know.
I was shocked. I
cool.
was like,
it's really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, so just want to say thank you to everyone who's been doing that. And Black Council. Should we talk about what we're plans with Black Council? Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to do Dance of the Dragons. Or specifically the novella, The Princess and the Queen.
Yep.
But by popular demand and somewhat timing, we have decided to push that back to November.
Yep.
And then we're just going to go ahead and do it. We're going to do the Hedge Night.
Yeah.
And then the Sworn Sword. And then the Mystery Night. So we will be doing the Hedge Night this month. And then that puts us in November doing... We think we're just going to do a bigger Dance of the Dragons thing because Fire and Blood comes out that month. And Fire and Blood ends with Dance of the Dragons.
Right.
So then we'll have more. We'll have information from the book, the main series, World of Ice and Fire, the 2 novellas.
Yep.
And then, as Fire and Blood. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it'll just be a lot more to pull from, and I think that'll be because we'd be posting a couple months before Fire and Blood comes out, and it's like we would probably want to rehash it anyways.
Right.
Like as you get new intel, you just want to kind of go back and revamp things, and so made more sense to do it that way. Mm-hmm. Plus, as you said,
people keep asking, when are you doing?
I know they do.
So we're like, well, you guys are our patrons, so you guys decide.
Yeah, and they literally told us
they
like
said,
that's
hey,
what
we want, so that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, so that's
trust me,
pretty cool.
Always down.
Yeah, that's right. So
all right. Well, I have a kind of an article here.
Okay,
Sir Ezra. Game of Thrones star Peter Dinklage explains Tyrion's mysterious look at the end of season 7. Remember when he's looking at the fisting of the First Men going on in that cabin?
What?
Because he knows they're in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember he has that look. Here's a picture, right? And the look is very specific. Is it anger? Is it jealousy? Is it Is he worried? It's kind of and people are
Okay.
So anyway, so
he explains
Peter
okay.
Dinklage here. This is some interesting. So they said, what was it with that look? Peter Dinklage himself has kind of an answer. He weighed in for Entertainment Weekly. It's complicated. A lot of the time with Tyrion, it's professional and personal. Obviously, he has feelings for Daenerys. He loves her, or thinks he does. Jealous love for Daenerys would explain why Tyrion was so dead set against her flying up to the north to rescue Jon. He describes her as the most important person in the world, while begging her not to play the hero. Peter Dinklage has used the word smitten to describe kind of his motivation for Tyrion with Daenerys.
No.
Tyrion also tells Daenerys to leave her lover Daario behind in Essos. He wasn't the first to love you, and he won't be the last. She's awe-inspiring. He's questioning that because he doesn't have a good track record for falling in love. There's jealousy wrapped up there, and he loves Jon Snow too. They're the 2 people he has the most common with in a way. They're both outsiders in their own families who have refused to follow the path their family has taken, and hopefully for the better. He's wondering how smart of a move, Jon and Dany getting together, is because passion and politics don't mix well. He knows the 2 of them getting together could be very dangerous.
Yeah.
And I believe that is just about all of the specific quotes from him.
From Peter Dinklage. Can I tell you something? You know what that makes me think? First thing I thought of.
They're getting together.
Is that we keep saying this is going to end bittersweet.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if at the end Tyrion has to betray his good friend Jon for that, and just has to hook up with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what if?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Tyrion has a chance to score.
Interesting. They are all kind of black sheep of their family in their own way.
That's crazy. That is crazy. Very interesting. Very interesting. I never thought that he looked at. I thought it was more like he loves her because everyone loves her because she's like that.
Right.
They see something in her as a great ruler, Well,
I mean, you also have to imagine this is Tyrion Lannister.
Oh, I know. Yeah, you're right. I mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly he's going to look at her.
He's got an
like,
appreciation.
What's up?
Yeah, he's got an appreciation. Yeah. Wow. That's really cool to hear.
I mean, nobody's talking about it. What if Tyrion and Daenerys were to hook up?
It
could happen in the
Nobody's
books.
talking about it. Yeah. I mean, it could. Yeah, it could. You know, I mean, she in the books, Daenerys hooks up with some of her handmaidens.
Yeah.
A little bit. So, you know.
You never know.
Just when she's out there lonely, learning things and stuff. So,
yeah.
Could be one of those quick, like, you know, in a moment where...
Tyrion is one of the characters I just see living. I just see him surviving.
Yeah, and here's my...
And I don't know what happens with him unless he's the... I would love for him to be the king.
So here's the thing. We have a lot of evidence that he's been with... Like, he obviously wants to have that romantic relationship with somebody. You know? Yeah. He wants a lady who he can, you know...
Because clearly they say, you know, he's down... At first, he's down to get with Sansa.
Yeah, but he's also, like, there's the good-heartedness that comes out. It's like, she's young, you know... I don't know, and this is torture to her. Then no, I don't want to do it, etc. You know. Yeah. So he definitely is respectful, and I don't know. I would love to see him end up with someone. Yeah. You know. And like I like to see it be a good.
I don't know who it would be.
I don't know who either, and I haven't thought about it until right now.
His wife could still be out there. His original wife, Tasha.
Oh yeah. When his father and Jamie set him up. Yeah. Yeah. That would be crazy.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's fun. Oh, that was a good one. I like that. I like that article. You didn't tell me about that at all.
No, I just told you I found. Yeah,
I
found
that on me.
Yeah, so
perfect. That's what I like. Okay. That's awesome. Done with small council. Time to head over to the Maester's study. And I think Sir Matt has wants to read just a bit here from the get-go.
Yeah. All right. Here we are. So this chapter is called "The Fall of the Dragons." Did I read last week? Oh, I did. Okay, I read the end. Okay. In the annals of Westeros, 281 AC is known as the year of the false spring. Winter had held the land in its icy grip for close on 2 years, but now at last the snows were melting, the woods were greening, the days were growing longer. Though the white ravens had not yet flown, there were many even at the citadel of Old Town who believed that winter's end was nigh. As warm winds blew from the south, lords and knights from throughout the Seven Kingdoms made their way toward Harrenhal to compete in Lord Went's great tournament on the shore of the God's Eye, which promised to be the largest and most magnificent competition since the time of Aegon the Unlikely. We know a great deal about the tourney. For the things that transpired beneath the walls of Harrenhal were set down by a score of chroniclers and recorded in many a letter and testament. Yet there is much and more that we shall never know, for even whilst the greatest kings of the Seven Kingdoms vied in the list, other and more dangerous games were being played in the halls of the Black Herons, accursed castle, and the tents and pavilions of the lords assembled. Many tales have grown up around Lord Went's tournament. Tales of plots and conspiracies, betrayals and rebellions, infidelities and assassinations, secrets and mysteries. Almost all of it conjecture. The truth is known only to a few, some of whom have long passed beyond this mortal veil and must forever hold their tongues. In writing of this fateful gathering, therefore, the conscientious scholars must take care to separate fact from fancy, to draw a sharp line between what is known and what is simply suspected, believed, or rumored.
Yeah, guys, I mean, so a lot, everything kind
of hinges
on this
one moment.
Well, and I love how this particular chapter was written, or is written, excuse me, because it's left open. It's really left open. They raise a lot of questions in it, but at the same time, you know, there's plenty of room, you know, for, you know, speculation and what have you. So, one of the things that we're going to get into real quick is that Walter Went didn't have the money possibly to support something like this.
Yeah, and so here's what's interesting. All right, so this just reading again here from the book. This is known. The tourney was first announced by Walter Went, Lord of Harrenhal, late in the year 280 AC. Not long after a visit from his younger brother, Sir Oswald Went, who is a knight of the Kingsguard.
Yep.
So a Kingsguardman gets sent, or just happens to go visit his brother, And then
you don't do that anymore. You're sworn to the king, so you go on king's business.
Yeah, and so Oswald Went is offering prizes thrice as large as those given at the Great Lannisport tourney of 272, which was hosted by Tywin Lannister.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Most took this simply as an attempt by Went to undo the former hand and demonstrate the wealth and splendor of his house. There were those, however, who believed this is no more than a ruse, and Lord Went no more than a cat's paw. His lordship simply lacked the funds to pay such a large prize. Someone else surely must have stood behind him. We have no shred of evidence that such a shadow host ever existed, but the notion was widely believed at the time and remains so today.
Mm-hmm.
So if there was if there was a shadow, who was he or she? Why did they choose to keep it a secret? It says, but only one seems truly compelling, and that is Rhaegar Targaryen, Prince of Dragonstone.
Yep.
If this tale is believed, it was Prince Rhaegar who urged Lord Walter to hold the tourney using his lordship's brother, Sir Oswald, as a go-between. Rhaegar would have provided Went with gold sufficient for the prizes, and Harrenhal, which is a central location.
Yep.
Because think about it, when you have tourneys in other places, not everyone always can
make it. Yes.
Yeah, this is at Harrenhal, so even the Starks and the Northmen could come. It's that central location.
Well, the other crazy part about this, when you said it's near the God's Eye, I started thinking, and we know that Hallan Reed shows up here.
Yeah.
The Crenogmen are there. So, that's interesting, isn't it? And its relationship. And, the history, too. The things that have happened, near the God's Eye and with the history with Harrenhal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's right here. This is interesting. The prince, it is said, had no interest in the tourney as a tourney. His intent was to gather the great lords of the realm together in what amounted to an informal great council in order to discuss ways and means of dealing with the madness of his father, King Aerys, possibly by means of a regency or a forced abdication.
Yeah.
So that is also interesting. So it doesn't seem, because when you think about it, Rhaegar's over at Dragonstone.
Yeah.
He could simply have his father assassinated if he wanted.
Yeah. I honestly, here's what I believe. His father's getting older. He is getting crazed, and he's losing his mind.
Right.
Call it whatever it is. I mean, he's starting to kind of to go mentally, and really, he doesn't. I don't think truly wish any ill will towards his father.
Right.
But it's like, guys, look at this. He can't run the kingdom. We need to do what's best, and that's where you have. That's when they're too young, we need a regent. Mm-hmm. Now he's too old. He's too old and he's gone mad. It's time for the regency.
Because he'd always been kind of. I mean, it seems like he kind of was like a jerk and stuff like that. And then once he got captured, it's like, okay, things are different now.
Yeah, he got unhinged.
He's pulling people's tongues out, and he hasn't started burning people yet.
Yeah.
But he's about to.
He's losing it for sure.
So all right, so it is possibly Rhaegar that is the one who is is funding this tournament here.
Right.
So there is kind of an issue, however, is because the issue is because the Mad King, while he has been cruel, is he has been showering a lot of these noble lords to kind of come to his favor.
Yes, he has.
You have Carlton Chelstead, Master of Coin, Lucius Valerian, Master of Ships, Simon Staunton, Master of Laws, the eunuch Varys, Master of Whispers, and Wisdom Rosser, Grand Master of the Guild of Alchemists, also enjoyed the king's trust. Rhaegar's support came from a lot of younger people. Lord John Connington, who he's
big deal right now in
Dance
of Dragons.
Yeah, Sir Miles Mooton of Maidenpool, Sir Richard Lawnmouth, the Dornishman, who had come to court with Princess Elia.
Yep.
Although he pretty much immediately loses them.
Yeah.
Lewin Martell, Elia's uncle and a sworn member of the Kingsguard. But the most formidable of all Rhaegar's friends and allies in King's Landing was surely Arthur Dane, the Sword of the Morning.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, like John Connington. What I was telling Sir Matt before we started, he was talking about just kind of coming across those chapters.
I just read that chapter with him where he introduces young Griff as Aegon Targaryen at the Golden Company, but they already know they suspected and they know who it is.
Right. Yeah. But the parts where maybe it's either before that or right after, he starts to kind of like when he talks about Rhaegar. I mean, it just kind of blows me away.
Everyone, when Barristan Selmy or Artisan Whitebeard, he's already revealed. He's revealed as Barristan immediately in the show. But it's the same. It's like really pretty much the same scene.
Yeah.
As he's taught, Daenerys is kind of expecting him to be somewhat like her dad, like kind of mad, and he's like, "Oh no, Rhaegar would play music for the people in the streets, and then we would collect money and go give it to."
Oh yeah, yep.
And she's like, "Rhaegar played music." She was like so taken aback,
right? Yeah,
taken aback by it. Now, and then there is a difference in the show. It just kind of ends there. In the book, she kind of presses him about like, well, did he participate in tourneys? And he says, yeah, he did.
Yeah,
he he unseated this guy and unseated this guy, and she says, well, did he ever win a tourney? And he says, well, he won one tourney, like the greatest tourney of all time. The tourney at Harrenhal. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's crazy. Hey, and think about that.
I know,
right?
So the question is, did he never win on purpose?
That
is it that Rhaegar actually is that good?
Yeah,
and then
maybe
lost, which to a lot of people I think is justification for the idea of that's why Rhaegar should have been better than Robert Baratheon. A lot of people that think he was glamored or he's still alive because like it seems like when the tourney at Harrenhal comes and it's really time to go, he suddenly beats everyone. Yeah. Even though he had been losing, he would get to like the finals and lose.
Yeah, he was still good. You know, he was kind of like our one guy, the guy, the Snail Knight. You know, what was his name? I can't remember. But you know, he seems that good. Or it's one of those things where he decided to pick up a sword and start training because maybe he knew one day he would need to win Lyanna's favor or something like that. I just don't know the foresight that he had or green dreams that he might have had that led him to this great tourney of Harrenhal. You know. Something to think about for sure.
Yeah. So this is interesting too. To Grand Maester Pycelle and Lord Owen Merryweather, the King's Hand, fell the task of keeping peace between these factions. Starting to sound kind of like the Dance of Dragons. In a letter to the Citadel, Pycelle wrote that the divisions within the Red Keep reminded him uncomfortably of the situation before the Dance of the Dragons, a century before. A similar bloody conflict might await the Seven Kingdoms once again, he warned, unless some accord could be reached that would satisfy both Rhaegar's supporters and the kings.
Yep.
So the real question is, if Pycelle is seeing this go on, and there's no accounts of this, is Pycelle really writing to his good buddy Tywin Lannister, hey, here's what's happening?
Oh, for sure. You know he was, yeah. I mean, also, like, those guys, I truly think Pycelle early on saw all the great things that Tywin did. It wasn't like Tywin is some tyrant. I mean, he was running a solid kingdom, you know, keeping things together. Now he's padding his own pockets, I believe. You know,
so here's an idea that I'm sure someone else has probably thought of this at some point.
Yeah,
but it just clicked in my head.
Sure,
we're going to get to the tourney at Harrenhal here, but is it possible that Rhaegar was actually planning for a civil war and things just got out of control, and that he was originally possibly, when he bestowed Lyanna Stark, the Queen of Beauty, it was a way to actually win the Starks' favor, and that he thinks maybe it'll come to a civil war between my dad and myself.
Wow.
And then maybe he kidnaps Lyanna thinking now the Stark, maybe because remember the Starks were offended by it. Because he was married.
Yeah.
Maybe he thought of. I mean, this is just trying to think outside of. Why would he? L equals J box.
Right.
So maybe he bestows that flower to her, thinking, oh, this will cause them to my side. Because if you have the Starks,
right,
you would then probably immediately have the Vale because they're friends, and the Riverlands because Brandon, and then you've got this a massive force. Plus, he already has other friends.
Yep.
And so maybe then you could force him out, but maybe everything just goes awry and not to plan. So maybe then he kidnaps Lyanna Stark, thinking now they have to, like, I'll hold her as my hostage. You fight for me, and I'll release her.
She'll have my child, and then through that, I'm uniting these houses, and so they'll have to kind of.
But then Robert rebels, and everything is all over the place.
Perhaps, yeah. Although, I mean, it completely backfires because. Brandon Stark goes down and is killed, and his father is killed. It's just like it's. I don't know. Maybe, but you're right. Maybe it did start from a I don't think he intended for that to happen.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Oh no, I mean, but like you still could be right about his intentions.
I don't think.
To start.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now, one thing, thinking about Tywin, and I'm thinking about the different lords who are showing up here. You were just kind of going over the lay of the land there. He's got Dorne, with Elia Martell kind of in his pocket. He's got Tywin. No, I'm sorry. He doesn't have Tywin, but I'm thinking he could. That's somebody who he's looking to get, and Pycelle knows how, knows who Rhaegar is, knows what's happening there. So that's why you have this tourney is when Tywin and those guys show up, here's a chance to kind of talk to them and persuade, we'd like you back, as Hand, and we got to straighten Dad out because he's lost his mind, But he had other supporters too. I mean, Highgarden would have been a supporter, right? I believe, right? Am I just making?
I mean, even got John Connington and stuff like that.
Yeah, those are the guys. John, okay, yeah. Yeah, and he's got Starfall. He's got Arthur Dayne and those guys. I mean,
he could have had Lord Went here. So
right.
So
yeah, for sure. So
yeah. So anyway here. What ends up happening though is as we get closer and closer to this tourney, what ends up happening is the Mad King starts to become suspicious.
Right.
If it was indeed that the king's intent, and he kind of refers to Rhaegar as disloyal.
Mm-hmm.
And it says so. If this was indeed the king's intent, it was a grievous miscalculation. Whilst his attendance made the Harrenhal tourney even grander and more prestigious than it already was, drawing lords and knights from every corner of the realm, many of those who came were shocked and appalled when they saw what had become of their monarch. His long yellow fingernails, tangled beard, and ropes of unwashed matted hair made the extent of the king's madness plain to all. Nor was his behavior that of a sane man, for Ares would go from mirth to melancholy in the blink of an eye, and many of the accounts written at Harrenhal speak of his hysterical laughter, long silence, bouts of weeping, and then sudden rages. It says,
are you kidding me? Hold on. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
So when you hear that, he's weeping, he's laughing hysterically, he's going in and out of different characters. He sounds deranged. I mean, and then he's got, he sounds like he's not bathing, he's not combing himself. Mm-hmm. He's got long nails. The picture in here too is like ridiculous. His nails are like ridiculously long.
Yeah.
He's been held up since I think they said the Defiance of Duskendale.
Yeah.
When Sir Barristan Selmy rescued him and stuff. So he's just held up in there with his kids and keeping them close. Viserys. So. That just really, that description that you just read there made me think even more. Everyone saw it.
Yeah,
they all saw how crazy he was.
Yeah, and it's beyond, like, even if you think about, like, I used to work in mental health, and Cesar, you work.
Yeah, I work with I work with kids that have mental health issues. Yeah,
mental health issues. Like some people would say, oh, bipolar, but this is so far beyond.
Yeah,
bipolar. I think bipolar is something that's, I think people over exaggerate. I think it's like and stuff like that, and so this is like well beyond that. I mean, this guy's all over the place.
Right.
So,
yeah,
he's probably got PTSD. I mean,
oh yeah. Oh for sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, as well as Brandon's, Stark and in his head. So I mean, he's
right,
all over things. Anyway, it says above all, he was suspicious most of his own son. He's suspicious to every lord and knight who had come to Harrenhal to compete, and even more suspicious of those who chose to be absent. And most notable was Tywin Lannister.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody comes to this tourney, including like the Starks. I mean, how often do Northern men come to tournaments? That's right. Think about where Winterfell is. Even to this, that's quite a ride.
Right. Now, here's my thing. So with Tywin not showing up, though, I actually think it's further evidence that he would have supported Rhaegar, because Jaime is actually this whole thing, too, by design of Gerald Hightower is a part of it, but, the Mad King definitely is wanting it to happen here at Harrenhal. They put his cloak on him there.
Yeah.
And they take him away from, as we said last week,
right.
Tywin, his heir, they take him away. And that really doesn't sit well with Tywin. So he doesn't show up for that reason. I don't think it has anything to do with, like, he probably knows about, he's probably been invited by Rhaegar, and I'm sure Rhaegar sees the value in having the Lannisters.
And Tywin would certainly have to know the state of the Mad King from Pycelle.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, even just
he also, in
leaving court.
He also, I mean, this guy was his friend. He may just not want. There may also be a part of him that just doesn't want to see him like this.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that could be.
So,
yeah. But there were, just because Tywin wasn't there, there were plenty of other lords and bannermen, hundreds of knights were on hand, and this is where you get into Sir Gerald Hightower raised up Sir Jaime Lannister in his white cloak.
Yeah,
He
had done this under the notion that bringing Jaime to the Kingsguard as a way of humbling his old friend. Grand Maester Pycelle tells us. So another thing is that we talk about perspective.
Yeah,
a lot of this information, if you kind of read through it, is told to us. This book is told to us from the eyes of maesters, and this information is like a secondhand account from Grand Maester Pycelle. So that is something you have to think about when you're reading this chapter, which is super interesting. I was explaining that to someone today at work, and we were just talking about she's like a fan of the show, and she's like, I want to get into the books, and she said she had looked at this one. I was kind of explaining it to her, and it's just really interesting. So that's just one thing, point of view.
Right. Yeah, good point.
So Grand Maester Pycelle tells us about this. Only did His Grace come to the realization that he would henceforth have Lord Tywin's son beside him every day with a sword at his side. So then he gets kind of nervous.
Started doubting that decision, didn't he? Like, I'm not so sure this is the guy I want protecting me. What was I thinking? Kind of starts. Well, his paranoia takes over, and ironically, he's the one who stabs him.
Yeah, he is.
So it is kind of. I guess.
So he actually sends him back, doesn't he? He sends him back to King's Landing.
Sir Jaime Lannister.
Yeah. So Sir Gerald Hightower offered to go in his stead, but Aerys refuses him. For the young knight had no doubt hoped to distinguish himself in the tourney.
Right.
This abrupt exile came in bitter disappointment. So that is something to think about. Is if Jaime had participated, is it possible Jaime would have beaten Rhaegar?
That'd have been fun to see, right?
Yeah. And so this is actually where a big theory comes in, is that Jaime Lannister, as we get to this Knight of the Laughing Tree, could be the Knight of the Laughing Tree. And the Matsu the Mad King suspects it is.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. For 7 days, the finest knights and noblest lords of the Seven Kingdom contended with lance and sword in the fields beneath the towering walls of Harrenhal. At night, victors and vanquished alike repaired to the castle's cavernous hall of the 100 Hearths for feasting and celebration. Many songs and stories are told of those days and nights besides the God Eye. Some are even true. To recount every joust and jape is far outside our purpose here. That task will gladly leave to the singers. 2 incidents must not be passed over, however, as they would have grave consequences. The first was the appearance of a mystery knight. A slight young man in ill-fitting armor whose device was a carved white weirwood tree. Its features twisting in mirth, the Knight of the Laughing Tree, as this challenger was called, unhorsed 3 men in successive tilts to the delight of the commons. Aerys was not a man to take in any joy in mysteries, however. He became convinced that the tree on the Mystery Knight's shield was laughing at him, and with no more proof than that, decided the Mystery Knight must be Jaime Lannister. His newest Kingsguard had defied him and returned to the Herney, he told every man. Furious, he commanded his own knights to defeat the Knight of the Laughing Tree when the joust resumed the next morning, so that he could be unmasked. But the Mystery Knight vanished during the night, never to be seen again. This too, the king took ill. Prince Rhaegar ultimately ends up winning the competition, but it's said I believe it's said in the books that Prince Rhaegar chases after this Knight of the Laughing Tree.
Yeah, it does.
And that's where people think that, because it's a big question: who is the Knight of the Laughing Tree?
Yeah, right, exactly. And well, we get the story from Mira Reed,
right?
I think kind of really leaning and hinting towards it could have been Lyanna.
It could have
been,
it could have been Lyanna. There are theories that could have been Howland Reed. There are theories that could have. I think Eddard Stark was one. Is one that
really
just online. Everyone has theories.
Yeah,
it could
sure.
be everyone.
I think the
most common is that it's Lyanna.
Yeah, and it's just because of the loosely fitting armor.
Right.
That was the big thing too. Is that it's not really doesn't really fit, and so and the fact that the knights that were defeated were told to go scold, their squires. To teach their squires some manners, basically, because they were the ones who picked on Howland Reed, So yeah, I don't know. I mean, but the fact that Rhaegar chases down the Knight of the Laughing Tree, did he discover who that was? And that was before he wins the tourney. Mm-hmm. So
it's like the night before, yeah.
Yeah, and then so it's possible that in the next day he wins, realize maybe he secretly does know that it's her, and maybe that's like this fall in love. I mean, it could be this thing. It could be this thing where he actually went there for political takeover. And, is working towards something else, and then unexpectedly comes across Lyanna and actually does love her and wants, to be with her. I don't know.
Because, so that happens. So that's not in World of Ice and Fire. That is just whatever. That we know that from the books.
From the book, yeah.
Right, so Prince Rhaegar wins, and he beats Barristan Selmy, who is, generally regarded as the finest lance in all the Seven Kingdoms.
Question, though, Sir Matt.
He is.
Yeah, he is, but Rhaegar beats him.
Yeah.
Is it because he's a Kingsguard?
That's possible.
Because remember Baelor Breakspear?
That's right. Not allowed to harm him.
They're not allowed to harm him. So, but how come on, so how hard are they writing against these guys in tourneys? You know what I mean?
It's true.
See, against other just knights, they can just unload.
Right.
But it's like when he enters, he's a prince.
Right.
So, the Kingsguard, it was, the way Baelor explained it was that, they basically, the royal family is under their protection, especially the king, and then by extension the royal family. So other knights could have at the princelings.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, I think that was sort of the way in the Hedge Knight, it seemed anyways.
Right.
But not the Kingsguard. They had sworn an oath that they couldn't really.
Right.
They could fight Baelor, but they really couldn't do much, So he just kind of picked them off one by one. He basically said, "Leave the Kingsguard to me."
Yeah, absolutely.
They can't touch me.
They can't touch him.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. That is something we could dive into and specifically look at the Tourney of Harrenhal information from chapters. But Prince Rhaegar ends up winning, and when the triumphant Prince of Dragonstone names Lyanna Stark, daughter of the Lord of Winterfell, the Queen of Love and Beauty, placing a garland of blue roses in her lap with the tip of his lance, the Lick-Spittle lords gathered around the king declared that further proof of his perfidy. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it is also an insult to his own wife, Prince Elia Martell of Dorne, who was present. He rides right past her.
Right. Yeah.
And there's some great pictures from the World of Ice and Fire book, and
and then the question, like you had just said, is it unless it was to help him gain the Iron Throne.
Exactly.
When they start to speculate as to why would he do this, give insult, to his own, lady wife. Why would he do that?
Yeah, and then this is interesting too. So this is also, keep in mind, from, I guess I'm assuming these maesters and perhaps Pycelle's point of view.
Good, yeah.
The crowning of the Stark girl, who was all reports a wild and boyish young thing with none of the Princess Elia's delicate beauty, could only have been meant to win the allegiance of Winterfell of Prince Rhaegar's cause. So this, that's something else that is interesting. Is there's another thing we hear about Lyanna and what she looks like is sometimes she's described as a wild beauty, and that she truly was the most beautiful at this tournament. Other times when people talk about Arya, Arya Horseface, she looks like her Aunt Lyanna,
right?
And then it's just interesting the different appearances, and then it's Renly Baratheon who is talking to Eddard Stark. We just talked about this, and he shows her the locket, right, and it's of Marjorie Tyrell or whatever,
right,
and he's like, doesn't she remind you of someone? So in Renly's eyes, Lyanna was beautiful.
Yes, for sure, and it's like
Ned Stark says no, she doesn't like anything like him.
Right, it's because it's a very different beauty. They always describe it as, and I think that's why Gert did it. It's like it's true. It's like there are a lot of different, like, I hate the idea that there's just like this one perfect type of, woman. It's like he's got a lot of different cultures and different things represented here. It's fantastic. And so she's this different type of beauty in her essence and who she is, her wildness and her just, I don't know. It's pretty cool. So, but yeah, now the king's supporters, though, as you just said, were back trying to convince him. We're telling him that, like, see, look here, this is what Rhaegar was doing. He's trying to win over the Starks for his takeover.
Absolutely.
And so that really isn't gonna go over well. So,
yeah, and says if this were true, then why did Lady Lyanna's brothers seem so distraught at the honor the prince had bestowed upon her? Brandon Stark, the heir of Winterfell, had to be restrained from confronting Rhaegar at what he took as a slight upon his sister's honor, for Lyanna Stark had long been betrothed to Robert Baratheon.
Yep.
Who Robert, actually, what's interesting here is that he just kind of thinks it's funny. He's like, well, she is.
Right, yeah, he does. You're right, yeah.
And so that, to me, is kind of a telling thing later when we know that Lyanna maybe doesn't think that Robert would ever be
faithful,
because we know Robert flies into a rage, and I think
Maya Stone is already his whatever his
his
bastard daughter,
and so I think that like the show does a really good job of it. I mean, obviously the chapter does as well, where Robert is talking about she was the only thing I ever wanted.
Yeah.
She was mine and she was taken from me. I think that is really more so kind of Robert's thing is that she was supposed to be his and she was taken from him.
Right. It is interesting that as you said, he just says that, Rhaegar paid Lyanna her due. She is the most beautiful there. Like, good for him for noticing.
I do find it interesting that he doesn't get jealous.
Yeah. I think he just plays, really, honestly, he's married. You know what I mean? It's really like
it's also the king at this point who he's still, or the prince who he still is supposed to have.
Right, he has a couple
in this position. Yeah,
yeah. I really, really, honestly think a lot of people would have just seen this as like maybe the Starks maybe Brandon had some real beef with some of the Targaryens for different things, but we don't know all of that. But it's sort of
well, I think maybe you could look at it as he's. I think some people's perspective, if that happened, maybe he's looking at it as we know that Ares takes liberties with other people's wives.
Yeah,
so maybe that's how some people could perceive it. It's like you're already married, so is this like you're supposed to be your mistress or something?
I see what you're saying. Is it like once she is married, on the wedding night, maybe he would be king taking the first, the king's right or whatever. Yeah.
So there's a lot. There's a lot of different angles to look at it from.
Right, and if it's her brother, sure. Most everyone else though would just say, he's trying to make an alliance here.
Yeah.
I would even say that.
Yeah.
Honestly, now that I've looked at this again.
Yeah.
So.
And says, and right here, and well it might, for with the simple garland of pale blue roses, Rhaegar Targaryen had begun the dance that would rip the seven kingdoms apart, bring about his own death and thousands more, and put a welcome new king on the Iron Throne. The fall spring of 281 AC lasted less than 2 turns. As the years drew to a close, winter returned to Westeros with a vengeance. On the last day of the year, snow began to fall upon King's Landing, and a crust of ice formed atop the Blackwater Rush. The snowfall continued off and on for the best part of a fortnight, by which time the Blackwater was hard frozen, icicles draped the roofs and gutters of every tower in the city. As cold winds hammered the city, King Aerys II turned to his pyromancers, charging them to drive the winter off with their magics. Huge green fires burned along the walls of the Red Keep for a moon's turn. Prince Rhaegar was not in the city to observe them, however, nor could he have been found in Dragonstone with Princess Elia and their young son Aegon. With the coming of the new year, the Crown Prince had taken to the road with half a dozen of his closest friends and confidants on a journey that would ultimately lead him back to the Riverlands. Not 10 leagues from Harrenhal, Rhaegar fell upon Lyanna Stark of Winterfell and carried her off, lighting a fire that would consume his house and kin for all those he loved, and half the realm besides. But that tale is well too to warrant repeating here. So there's a lot actually to break down. I mean, a lot.
Yeah.
That we're going to have to break down here in this last chapter because there's so much there and all kinds of different theories. So first of all, the line, and well it might, for all with that simple garland of pale blue roses, Rhaegar had begun a dance that would rip the 7 kingdoms apart.
Mm-hmm.
There we go again with the pale blue roses. So here's a question. We know that Lyanna was fond of these roses. We don't really get whether she was fond of them before.
Oh, yeah.
Or perhaps fond of them after.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Because if she was fond of them before, how would Rhaegar know?
Right.
So I actually did some research on blue roses.
Where they come from?
Blue roses are not they do not grow naturally.
Okay.
You have to specifically kind of breed them.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Maybe they do in Gurr's world, but just in our own world, that is not the case.
Right. Yeah. Oh boy. They do talk about this somewhere about the rose, like the blue rose.
I think they do. Do they
only growing in a certain spot up in like I thought it was near Winterfell.
Yeah, do they grow naturally in Gurr's world?
That's what I was trying to remember here.
That's okay. Okay, so anyway, so there's that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And then moving past here. So then right here, so when it talks about winter has returned to Westeros with a vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of winter is coming, and so winter returns with a vengeance. And then we get the Mad King who is urging his pyromancers to essentially to drive the winter off with magic, which is interesting.
Yeah.
When you start thinking about the Night King or whatever it is going to end up being in the book, whether we do get a Night King or not, certainly in the show, just because we're there, that idea of I just think that's interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's heavy foreshadowing for sure.
Right.
He's stirred up something. He stirred up something here that's going to, as you said, rip the kingdom apart and then bring on winter.
Yeah.
And the Starks have been
done.
done.
Can we fight winter with wildfire?
That's what the Mad King's trying to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't work because we know wildfire is a close cousin of dragonfire, and dragonfire is better. So is it possible that we can fight winter with dragonfire? It is an interesting thought and idea.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So then I have one more question here, Sir Ezra. Right here. Not 10 leagues from Harrenhal, Rhaegar fell upon Lyanna Stark of Winterfell and carried her off.
Wait. I'm sorry. Read that again.
Yeah. Not 10 leagues from Harrenhal, Rhaegar fell upon Lyanna Stark of Winterfell and carried her off. Doesn't that put her in the Riverlands?
Let me see. That's a really...
And so my question is, because I don't think Harrenhal is relatively close to Winterfell.
No,
So what is she doing?
It's still ways. It's a long way.
So what is she doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to.
Because it makes it seem like it's not immediate. Like he doesn't just ride off to her after the tourney, because the king has to get back to King's Landing, and that's probably going to take a while. So at some point, she's just riding around.
Okay, so leagues. I'm trying to look up 10 leagues or whatever. It's common in Europe, Latin America. So that would be about 34 miles is what this is coming. I'm look up to a chart. You know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out how far that would be. So you're right. It's not close. it's a ways. But she did leave though and started journeying back to Winterfell.
Right.
And he pursued her.
Right.
Yes.
So he just pursues her immediately. Yeah, let me see here. I have my map here. So Harrenhal is over by the God's Eye. Winterfell is way...
Yeah, it's way up there.
It's way up there.
Yeah.
So that would put her somewhere around the neck.
Maybe. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Okay, the wall is 100 leagues long.
Okay.
So there's a reference point for you. Though it might be safe to say that most anyone in a day.
So that would put her, if Harrenhal's here, that would put her right around the Trident.
Right around the Trident. Okay. They say about 10 leagues is about. You said 10 leagues from
Harrenhal. Yeah.
Harrenhal. No, she's 10 leagues from Winterfell.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that what it says?
Yeah. You're correct. So that would put her, somewhere at.
So man, he really has to pursue her up into the north then.
Yeah, so that's
beyond
that's even above like Moat Catelyn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because I just looked up like a little like science Game of Thrones comparison stuff here, talking about how basically 10 leagues is something you could maybe travel in a day if you really pushed hard. You know what I mean? So a day out or something, day and a half out maybe.
Yeah. So it's just interesting.
Yeah, it is. I love the people who have tried to who've broken down the math on this. Yeah. So
I don't know. Send us a raven. Let us know what you think. There's a lot to break down from this chapter.
Lots of theories. Lots of different possibilities here as to who is doing what. And even when the rebellion breaks out, I kind of almost wonder if there isn't some confusion. I think it is then sort of it is Rhaegar and Robert's war really. And so like we're going to talk today in the Catelyn chapter about those who supported, it says Aerys, the Mad King, but really those who were supporting Rhaegar.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially.
Yeah.
I know, and I get that it was the Mad King who killed, Brandon and Lord Stark, but it's still I feel like Rhaegar is the one who rallies everybody, and he's the one who kicks it off.
There's even some civil war going on in the World of Ice and Fire chapter during Robert's Rebellion. And if you just actually, even if you go to the wiki, it talks about the first fighting really kind of takes place in the Vale. When Lord Aaron's saying, hey, let's go, they say, there's some supporters there, and they kind of have, a little kind of skirmish there.
You're right about that.
So.
Yeah, good point.
And Sam's dad, Randall Tarley, is kind of against what's going on with the the Tyrells. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, everybody kind of tried to, if they could take advantage, they did take advantage. Yes. That war had broken out, right? So, all right, I think that's it for the Maester's study. Time for us to turn to the reread here. Let's see. So let me pull up the summary.
Yeah.
Looks like so last week in recap, we were in Eddard 6, and we talked a lot about just, Eddard going and visiting Robert's bastards, going back and seeing what Jon Arryn, and Stannis Baratheon had come across. Gendry, we met him, and we got to kind of, speculate a little bit on who his mother was. That was a lot of fun. If you guys have thoughts on that, I'd love to hear, thoughts on who his mother is. If it's straightforward, we're just, bonkers, then just tell us. That's fine.
Oh, we definitely are.
We definitely are. But, it's just fun to kind of really pull it apart and see what we can get to. So, yeah. Let's see here. And then, okay, last, so we're in Catelyn. We're in Catelyn 5, it looks like today. So last time when we were with Catelyn, we had a secret meeting with Peter Baelish, and Catelyn is told that Tyrion Lannister is actually the one who owned or possessed the dagger last. And she's told that by Peter Baelish, saying that he lost it. Was that how it went down? Yeah. To Tyrion. So this week we've got Catelyn and Sir Roderick take shelter at an inn at the crossroads. And, while we're there, Catelyn notices some of her... They're in the Riverlands.
Yeah.
And so she's thinking about her father, Hoster Tully, and she's thinking about, some of the men who, if war does break out... Remember, she's been sent on an errand back to Winterfell to call the banners, essentially. Secretly kind of rally support, let people know that there's something going on. That will... I wish that would have... We would have got to see more of that while Ned was still able, and what have you. But anywho, so yeah, and we actually, while she's at this inn, she comes across our good friend Tyrion Lannister. So, alrighty, there's your summary. We'll dive into some of these details here, and really get after it. This week, I thought some of the more interesting things that I found in this chapter were the this information on the Riverlands, and some of the houses that are there. So we'll kind of get into that a little bit here. But we're on the King's Road. Remember, they're undercover too. So like they're under, like she's Catelyn's got her hood up.
Yeah, they pretend to be father and
daughter, which is great. So it's it's raining, and they've got to get out. They don't want to catch a chill, so they got to get out of the rain. And it's really Catelyn who kind of leads them back to the inn at the crossroads. Now, this inn at the crossroads is actually a pretty big deal. I don't want to get into all of it.
Right. We come back here quite often.
Quite often, don't we? It's actually, I think it's such a cool thing that Gur has kind of set up. These different characters come across, these different inns, and you've got even different like brothels and stuff where it's like they're nearby these places, and so you start to kind of a lot happens there, and you almost wonder if this Masha Masha Heddle, is who runs. She's the fat woman that kind of runs the inn at the crossroads, and she's someone that Catelyn kind of remembers growing up as. She ran this back when she was a child, and oftentimes Hoster Tully would bring them there, and she always smiled and was always kind of doting on, his kids and things. But they came there openly, as Lord Tully. He's showing up, and taking a room there at the inn. They got a nice picture of the inn on the wiki, actually, a little bigger than what you would imagine it to be, and in the show it seems like it's a smaller room there. I imagine a much bigger room.
Absolutely. Yeah. It, more often than not, everything in the show is quite smaller than it is in the books.
And Gur's mentioned that a lot. He gets just budgeting and things like that.
Well,
but
you can't. Yeah.
He's talked about this. Not the inn, but different keeps and stuff that are just they're way bigger than what we actually.
The red keep, like the throne room is supposed to seat, like hundreds, as opposed to like the 30 it shows and the.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So interesting as they're getting ready to go into the inn, they pass someone named Jason Mallister, and so he's a bannerman to her father, and basically he doesn't recognize Catelyn. She's much older than last time she was there. I mean, she was a lot younger.
She sees kind of a bunch of people that she kind of knows, and really this chapter we just, as you said, we just get some backstory on the Riverlands and who they are, Hoster Tully, her dad,
right? Yep.
And stuff like that, and just kind of the area. They talk about like the Mountains of the Moon, the Vale of Arryn, where it kind of goes.
Yep, its relationship to the Vale, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they talk about shadow cats and what's on the mountain road. It's just all just super interesting.
Yeah, and so when they first get to the inn, they're actually met by Masha. And she basically tells them that there's only 2 rooms available. They're right at the top of the stairs. There's like this loud clock that or bell that rings for supper time and different things like that. So they're able to kind of get the last rooms. Weren't they? It is Hans Turney, right? This is bringing everybody through here.
It's also interesting what they do. As Sir Roderick says, it might be safer if we were not knight and lady until we pass the next. She says that, right?
Yeah.
Common travelers attract less notice. A father and daughter taken to the road might have some family business, say. As you say, my lady, Sir Roderick agreed. It was only when she laughed that he realized what he'd done. The old courtesies die hard, my daughter. He can't get past it. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be difficult for them to keep that up for a while, but
she says, "Come, father," and then they go get a table.
It's a good little scene. I like Sir Roderick actually.
Good guy. Do too. I like the guy who plays him.
Yeah, me too.
In the show too. Yeah, he's another one of those actors. So I can't think of his name. But I've seen him in stuff.
Right. Yep. So now while they're on their way here, and after Jason Mallister passes by, she's thinking about where she can go after this. Once they get dry clothes, what can we do? Once we leave here, and she contemplates. This is where we get a tidbit on Lysa. We get her sister Lysa, who's over in the Eyrie, Lysa Arryn now, and basically to pass over the mountain, like through that mountain pass. That's the trouble that she has once she. Well, we'll talk about that here at the end. But she has trouble with that later on, and she actually kind of foreshadows the trouble she might have going through that mountain pass. It's dangerous. Her father Yeah, I don't know if you saw something. Okay, her father says he would need to take like a
right.
Like a legion. I don't know how many.
Yeah, just because the mountains of the moon and the tribes.
Right. Yeah. So he went through there with a lot of protection. So let's see here. Yeah, and then eventually she decides that really the only course is to go north, and once she passed the neck, she can get aid from one of the bannermen of House Stark, and that should do it. So, let's see. And then she while she's in the Riverlands, this is where the part that I thought was interesting. And if you can find it in the chapter, Sir Matt, we can read from it. I'll describe it briefly. It's where she turns her thoughts to the reliability of Riverrun's bannermen. How reliable are they? Because she'll start talking about like Walder Frey, the late Lord Frey, and basically some of the other men who they were kind of split. The Riverlands was split during Robert's rebellion a little bit. You had the Darys, the Rygers, the Mootons. They fought for King Aerys the second, and she's kind of wondering what would happen if war did erupt.
Right?
Would they stay loyal to House Tully?
Well, they're kind of making small talk with some of the people, and she's talking to them, where she's kind of talking to there's like a singer, somebody asked her a question.
Marillion, the singer.
Yeah.
Once they get into the
7 blessings to you, good folk, he said. An empty wine cup stood on the table before them, and to you, singer, Catelyn returned. Sir Roderick, calls for some bread and stuff like that, and then they just kind of he kind of asks them where they're going, where they've come, what news they've heard. And they said we left King's Landing a fortnight ago. He says that's where I'm bound.
Mm-hmm.
And says that she had suspected he was more interested in telling his own story than hearing hers.
Right.
The hand's turning means rich lords with fat purses. The last time I came away with more silver than I could carry, or would have if I hadn't lost it all in betting on the Kingslayer to win the day. The gods frown on the gambler, Sir Roderick said sternly. He was of the North and shared the Stark view on tournaments, which is interesting. Then why were the Starks at the tourney of Harrenhal? Just saying. Yeah. Then they kind of go back on that, and they talk about this time my coin will champion Sir Loras, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Then they just kind of go back on that, back and forth about that a little bit.
Well, yeah, he even boasts that this is where she kind of, she's just kind of wondering whether this singer, whether she's heard him before, and at Riverrun, and ask him whether he played there for Lord Tully. And that's a chamber. Like, he doesn't go, as you said, to Winterfell, but he has been there to Riverrun many a time. And it's right after that, basically, that the door bangs open and you have this Tyrion Lannister arrival, really.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. But the piece about the state of the Riverlands is just interesting. So if you guys have time to go check that out, it's just her thoughts, really, thinking about the battle that took place. So it says here the Darys and the Rygers and Mootons had sworn oaths to Riverrun as well, yet they had fought with Rhaegar Targaryen on the Trident. And again, it's Rhaegar Targaryen, so that they were loyal to him. And I believe Lord Darry, when we were passing down on the King's Road, remember they were the ones who had hidden the dragon banners away. Not Tyrion, or they made the comment like they had just, seems like they had just literally come off the wall right before
Actually, I thought
Robert.
That was Tyrion who said they made that.
It is Tyrion, so I'm trying to remember when. I feel like though they've. Okay, it was just mentioned then when Robert is holding court, with Lord Darry, isn't it?
I think so.
I think he's there, and I'm pretty sure that when they go through there, they mention that it's not. They're cordial, but he was on the other side. He was fighting for the other side. I'm almost positive here. Let me just see real quick if I can find it. In the Game of Thrones, House Darry is among the houses that Viserys Targaryen believes will rise for him if he gets into Westeros. Let's see. During the hunt for Arya Stark, and Micah, King Robert Baratheon and his party stay at Castle Derry. So that was or in earlier chapters, and it was tense there. You could see him kind of like almost enjoying the position that Robert and Ned were in, and that they were they were at odds with each other. So that's still kind of fresh in their mind. You know, he was a participant in that, and so it's just you know. Pay attention to that as you go through and you read, because these guys come back, and you know you've got John Connington showing up now in A Dance of Dragons, you know, with the supposed Aegon. What allies is he going to make? Viserys is probably right. Yeah. You know that the Mootons and the Darys would be good allies. You know, possibly. So because I'm sure there was some, you know, punishment for supporting the wrong side. Mm-hmm. You know, but anyway, so Tyrion comes in and basically is told by the innkeep that there are no rooms.
Yep. Yeah, innkeep, a servant's voice calls, we have horses that want stabling, and my lords of Lannister require a room for a hot bath. And then, you know, oh God, Sir Roderick says before Catelyn reached out to silence him as they're trying to conceal themselves. And again, this is another scene that the show, you know, does really well, a really good job of. Is that they're trying to kind of hide, and Tyrion's kind of just walking around and saying like, well, who might give up their room?
Right, pulls out gold.
Who might give up their room for some gold? So,
when he instantly gets somebody to jump up and he tosses the gold coin and they catch it.
Yeah, he says, "Yeah, you're welcome to a free rider in a faded blue cloak, lurched to his feet. You're welcome to my room, my lord." Now there's a clever man, Lannister says, and a nimble one to boot, because he kind of had like lurches up in the air to kind of grab it. He talks to the fool, and he's asked him to sing something. Tyrion starts kind of looking at some of the other tables. He's looking for food, you know, just stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And is this when he notices?
Oh yeah, right after that. So
yeah, right here. Yeah, Marion gaped at her. Oh no, right here. Oh, sorry. Nothing would be more likely to ruin my supper, the dwarf said dryly. His mismatched eyes considered the singer briefly, started to move away, and found Catelyn. He looked at her for a moment, puzzled. She turned her face away, but was too late. The dwarf was smiling. "Lady Stark, for what an unexpected pleasure," he said. "I was sorry to miss you at Winterfell." And then this is when people kind of...
Yeah. Well, I think if he would have known she was trying to keep a low profile, I don't think he would have called her out.
No.
I think he thinks she just is Lady Stark and she's out in the open.
Right.
You know, so he doesn't mean anything by it. He literally...
And in Tyrion's eyes, it's like, oh, hey, like...
Yeah, I missed you.
What's up? Like, what's going on? Yeah, because he's, as we know, is innocent. And I mean, he's also still Tyrion, so he's kind of like the life of the party. I mean, he doesn't mean anything by it. I mean, this is, he's completely taken, you know, aback when he's taken, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yep. And this is when she basically, instead of addressing him at all, you know, she kind of stands up and starts to kind of talk and call out different men around the room.
Yeah. Catelyn glanced around the room at the faces of the knights and sworn swords, and took a deep breath to slow the frantic beating of her heart. And, you know, it's interesting, Sir Ezra, in thinking about this. If you look at some of the parallels between the Catelyn chapters and the Ned chapters, we have a Ned chapter where the Ned chapter is where Catelyn goes to visit, or Ned goes to visit her in the brothel, right? That's his chapter. And then we have another one where she's in the brothel talking to people. And then here we have her kind of looking around this room saying like, who can I call upon?
Right.
Just like later when Ned is in another situation where he has to make a decision right then and there. Yeah. And he is looking around the room. Yeah. Who can I call upon?
You're right. It's actually a really good parallel.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's when, so she notices as she looks around here.
Yeah, in the corner, which is like the same thing. I think Ned finds Beric Dondarrion like in the corner.
Right. Yep. Yeah, she said to an older man she had not noticed until now, "Is that the black bat of Harrenhal I see embroidered on your surcoat, sir?" And he gets up. He's proud to kind of, you know, say that, yes, it is. "And is Lady Went a true and honest friend to my father, Lord Hoster Tully of Riverrun?" Now, interesting. Is that the same Lady Went that was married to the same, you know, Lord Went that was at that organized the tourney at Harrenhal?
Maybe.
Right, and is she, you know, possibly Does she
widow,
hold?
Yeah, the widow. Yeah.
Right. What secrets does she hold?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So take a look at that. So he says she is, and then she notices.
Jonas Bracken.
Yeah. Yeah, where's that at?
The Red Stallion was ever a welcome sight to River Run, she said to the trio by the fire. My father counts Jonas Bracken amongst his oldest friends and most loyal bannermen. The three men at arms exchanged uncertain looks. Our lord is honored by his trust. And then this is, I envy your father and all these fine friends, Lannister quipped, but I do not quite see the purpose of this, Lady Stark. This is by far Catelyn's best scene. Period. I think of the entire of her entire time.
Yeah.
She ignored them, turning to the large party in blue and gray. They were the heart of the matter. There were more than 20 of them. I know your sigil as well, the twin towers of Frey. How fares your good lord, sirs? Their Captain Rose. Lord Walter is well, my lady. He plans to take a new wife on his 19th name day, and has asked your lord father to honor the wedding with his presence. Tyrion Lannister sniggered. That was when Catelyn knew he was hers. This man came a guest into my house, and there conspired to murder my son, a boy of 7, she proclaimed to the room at large, pointing. Sir Roderick moved to her side, his sword in his hand. In the name of King Robert and the good lords you serve, I call upon you to seize him and help me return him to Winterfell to await the king's justice. She did not know what was more satisfying, the sound of a dozen swords drawn as one, or the look on Tyrion Lannister's face.
I mean, it is actually pretty cool.
It's so cool. It's by far her.
Even though we don't really like the idea that they're being drawn and on Tyrion, but
and it only gets cooler in her next chapter. Mm-hmm. Like, the best part about this moment is actually what we find out. Spoilers. In the next Catelyn chapter, where Tyrion is talking about, like, you know, clearly, like, my father is gonna come looking, and he says, like, everyone could hear what you were saying. You're like, she's right. You're right. I said it quite often and quite loudly.
Yeah.
It's so cool. It's so cool.
Yes, it is.
As then he realizes where he's going.
Right.
And it's a big diversion.
Yeah. Smart on her part. You're right.
Super smart on her part. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's a neat chapter just because you get to more houses. You know, as we're building the world. You know, this is the first book, and it's just kind of great. Like, I even forgot. I just pulled up here, Sir Matt. How's Bracken there?
Yeah.
You know,
the Brood of Bracken.
I didn't realize that they're. As soon as I heard Red Stallion, I'm like, wow, that's actually pretty awesome.
Yeah.
You know, Stonehenge being their seat. Mm-hmm. That's what it's also known as, right? It's just freaking cool, actually. So I'm kind of a fan now. I used to think that they were kind of like, oh, you know, the Blackwoods and the Brackens, like, oh, whatever, side of the Blackwood. No, you know. So anyway, all right. I think that's it for the reread there. So time to jump into Cinder Raven.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's see here. We have Varamir Foreskins.
Yeah.
Hitting this up. Loving this. So this actually came out of the group. We are actually...
Yeah, sometimes we'll pull from the group. There's big discussion going.
Yeah, we're kind of backlogging a few, of the Ravens that we had. And we had we've got the Lord Adam Parker episode that we're doing. So, alrighty. You guys had mentioned in the show that there were a lot of Ravens about the World of Ice and Fire, and I've got a good one that I heard about back when I first read it. I listened back through a few of your earlier Maester studies and into a couple of the Second Breakfast podcasts to see if you guys had brought this up. It sounds like at the time you were going through the audiobook version, so you may not have caught the little detail, and he's absolutely right. I thought I would share for anyone who hadn't heard about this or didn't know or didn't own the hard copy. Before the preface, there is a note from Maester Yandel to the king. The first photo is what the page looks like, but take a look at the second photo. You can see Tommen's name, but underneath you can see Joffrey and Robert's name scratched out. This is a cool little detail that gives you a very precise timestamp of when this Maester is supposed to have written this in relation to the show and books. Hopefully this is newest information to at least someone out there, Varamir Foreskins.
Yeah.
And so I had to go, kind of look. He also sent a picture along with this too, so you can look this up. Maybe I think the picture is in the group, so you guys can go check that out, which is awesome. But it's just kind of neat, neat little nugget. Sir Matt often talks about, when and where, how things, who were they written by, perspective, all that good stuff. So
yeah, right there.
Yeah, right there it is. Little scratch out marks. So, yeah.
Which is interesting, yeah, to think about.
Right. Because so quickly.
Well, there's in Fire and Blood, we talked about this a while back because some Fire and Blood was shown off at Comic-Con, like a little bit of it. And they said that there were some changes made, and it's because clearly must be a piece written about it in that book, and I think it's talking about, they call him, is it Prince Aerys, who becomes Aerys the First Targaryen?
Okay, yeah, yep.
But he is listed as Prince in there because he hasn't become king yet, based upon when that time, or maybe it's Viserys or
yeah,
I can't remember.
I remember you brought it up.
Yeah, I can't remember which king it is. He's the one that's in between, like Darren and around that time. So
yeah, and so interesting
Darren
here, guys.
Good. Yeah,
this is actually pointing this out that Yandel is writing this to Lord Tommen, the first of his name, King of the Andals, the Rhoynar, and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms, Protector of the Realm. Yandel, your humble maester of the Citadel, wishes thousandfold prosperity now and forever, and wisdom unmatched. So he's writing this for Tommen. So imagine that too. Now take that into consideration. Is there some, is Robert Baratheon made to look a little more favorable than he might have been? For example, I don't know. Are the Targaryens kind of cast in a different light? Who knows? But then again, a lot of these characters like and enjoy those old Targaryen stories. They like the idea of,
right.
These histories. For example, Arya is naming, her direwolf Nymeria, which I know is not a connection to the Targaryens, but it's like a connection to the histories.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it must. By the way, is Viserys the second, is who it must have listed. He's the king right before Aegon IV and after Baelor Breakspear. Remember, he falls well out of line, and then it ultimately comes way over to him.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
was that you said in a novella we were reading that?
No, that was it's going to be in Fire and Blood.
Oh, on Fire and Blood, sure. Yeah,
they showed it at a little bit of snippet of at Comic-Con, and there's like a piece that is written by a maester.
Yeah, good. Okay.
And so, where we would read it now is like he is just known. He's referred to as king,
right?
As King Viserys, but written at that time,
that he's primary source.
He is listed as Prince Viserys. There's it's a family tree. Remember we were looking at it.
He's listed as Prince
based upon what time it was written. So it's just interesting. So that's something else with Fire and Blood that's gonna be really interesting. Is we're gonna get I think we're gonna get some primary source stuff. Yeah. And so you have to kind of really look at when it was written, what's going on, and stuff like that too.
Right.
So
agreed. Yeah.
And that I think is by far the best thing Gur does in writing is.
Yeah.
You really have to look at context and things.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yep. Okay. All right. Veramir, we appreciate it, man. Honestly, go check out the group, guys. He's, everybody's posting some really good stuff in there. And it's been, honestly, really motivating for us. And it's really added to the depth of the show. And we've got some, making some interesting connections, things like that I actually, when I first bought the book, Veramir, I did not actually start at the beginning because I flipped to the page where we were at, and I just said, "Oh, cool, I got to pick up right where we're at," because I was listening to the audiobook, and so really glad I went back and looked at that. So awesome. Okay, on to Man the Wall. Again, we have our Patreon series, our exclusive podcast there. We had talked about at the top of the show. We're going to continue with that. A few people, we actually just sent out a batch of T-shirts to some people who had recently signed up, and then I think if you signed up within the last couple, this past week or so, I will be hitting you up soon just to sort of get your T-shirt size, and we'll kind of go from there. So
sigil going and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Too,
so once we, a part of this too is like with Sir Matt moving, we have to get some of the show prepped first before we can actually. Get to the business side of that.
It was our goal. We knew with Sir Ezra and I both
back to back
both moved. Well, you moved because we were rooming together, and so then both moved back to the town where both our parents are from, And luckily, we live right next to each other, so that's made this couple of weeks easy. So now with me moving across the country, so we just want to again thank you guys so much for kind of hanging in here with us for this weird kind of transition period over the last like 6 weeks. It's kind of been so.
Yep.
So we hope everything's been pretty, I think, stable. I think it's been.
Yeah.
There was that one episode.
Yeah.
We'll say this. It's always funny when we get, and I love it when we get people who are like they're a new patron or they're new to the group and they're like, oh man, just found the podcast. I'm on like episode 7.
Yeah,
and we're like, God, it's probably so bad. Like it's like every couple of weeks we're always like we are so much better than we were.
We try to be.
We try to be, but at least that's kind of our thought process.
Yeah, sure.
When I go back and listen to even like 2 or 3 episodes, I'm like, I had no idea what I was talking about. Like,
well, it's just the whole purpose behind the podcast is to dive into a series that is actually, when you look at it, it's so huge.
Vast.
It's just so awesome. There's so much there. So it takes. It's going to take our whole group. Really, it's going to take all of our bannermen and everybody to kind of dig through it, and especially when this new stuff drops.
Oh man,
it's going to be overwhelming. Super important for people to kind of enlighten each other and things, and so. I don't know. We're also, though, really super excited for this fall because we are looking forward to getting to know a lot more of our, a lot more of our patrons, a lot more of our book club members and people who are real active in the Facebook group, by doing some hangout sessions and just, different things.
When we get the rewatch, we're going to do the rewatch going, and that'll be cool to have you guys on the show, too. Which is awesome.
Yeah, the rewatch is for sure a cool thing. You're going to be on the show if you do that. We'll also do some just hangouts if you're kind of nervous about that. You just want to kind of chill, hang out, possibly, do like a Discord chat or something. I don't know. We'll figure that out later. But we definitely want to do something
some Q&A,
like that.
Some Q&A stuff. We've had some people reach out and say like, "Oh, would you guys ever do like a Q&A?" And we're like, "Yeah, if people want us to, sure."
Yeah. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
So. But okay, head over to patreon.com/bendthenee and check out all that good stuff there. And don't forget to, if you're wondering about sigils and things, hit up Sir Matt. We got a sigil for you. We like to get names. We love to use your names and your house words. Just a lot of fun, for us to kind of like, make those connections and stuff. So
yeah. All right. Well, everybody, it is time to say farewell. Hopefully, not my last.
I sure hope.
As I traverse across the country. But all right, we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 29, Sansa 2.
Alrighty. If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember, winter is coming.